Okay, so welcome everyone to today's Espresso Chat. My name is Aparajita Bose-Malik, and I'm the Global Product Manager at the Reference Data Utility. And I'm joined here today by my two colleagues and friends, Stephen Koch and Pallavi Dongre. Pallavi is our Global Head of Data Operations, Managed Services and Client Management, and Stephen is our Global Head of Data Quality here at the Reference Data Utility. And we're here today to talk to you about our values and how they have driven to the development of our recently launched Exchange Notification Service. So I'm going to start with Stephen. Stephen, you're a historian by education, but you spent the last 40 years in leadership roles in the financial services sector. So can you tell us how your background has informed you and helped the reference data utility, perhaps?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's hard to see sometimes where the two intersect and how someone interested in one would be interested in the other. But both deal with facts and collecting data. In history, you're gathering pieces of data from various sources and fitting them together to tell a coherent story about the past. Some sources are reliable and some are less so. Typically, primary sources are best, but sometimes those can be unreliable, sometimes difficult to interpret. So secondary sources can shed a different perspective and a broader perspective. This is similar to what we do with quality of reference data, including change to that data over time. By reviewing the primary sources, we can better judge the reliability of the secondary sources and sometimes vice versa. But primary sources can be disparate in format and difficult to use directly. Secondary sources are much more organized, but as we said before, can be suspect. What we're doing with our Exchange Notification Service is filling a gap by better organizing the primary data sources for consumption and to be able to use them as comparison with secondary sources. We're taking away a lot of the drudge work that usually gets done by manually reading every notification and sorting them and providing it. And there we provide a tool that firms can use to zero in on those notices that matter to them. Pallavi, you have a background in consulting at a number of banks and reference data projects. What do you think makes the RDU version of exchange notification processing different from what the banks are traditionally doing?
Yes, I mean, there was a time, and I like to say around 2010, when literally every bank was doing a reference data project. There was a lot of focus on building efficiencies, and a lot of money was spent on licensing and sourcing, large amounts of data. And at that point in time, I did get a chance to consult with a number of firms where we were either trying to model their reference data hub, or even kind of build feeds or build links to feeds or exchanges. As a part of that, the Exchange Notification Service certainly plays a very strong part in trying to keep up to date. See, the building part is easy, but trying to keep the data pristine over an extended period of time, that's the tough part. And very quickly, we all realized that keeping track of the changes that are happening on exchanges, on feeds, is what drives how clean your data is, how clean the data that's going downstream is, right? So each bank actually has their own version of an exchange notification service, right? Some more manual than the others, but they typically would have a bunch of people sitting monitoring exchange websites, because each exchange has their own format of sending out the notifications, right? Some send it out on email, some publish it on their websites, some do a combination of the two, right? So you just have to have a bunch of people who are on their toes, and every day, and this is an everyday business, you don't know when the notifications are going to be out. I like to call this a 24/7 service, because each exchange is open, and if you're tracking global exchanges, they're literally open throughout the day, 7 days a week. So that way, I feel like what RDU, right, has come up with from an exchange notification service point of view is pretty unique. And it's like It's like when you commission painting for your house, right? And, you're going to make sure it's the best version of the best painting that will suit your house, right? So in many ways, the exchange notification service is that painting for us, right? We built it or it was created with the aim of using it internally for my data operations team. Why? Because we have a exchange traded derivatives service, and we need to keep up to date with all of the data attributes, data points, feed formats, changes, listings, name it and you have it. All of those need to be kept track of across global exchanges, right? So we built over many years efficiencies. We realized that they come in different formats. We need to kind of build those formats right. So in many ways, like I said, the ENS is something that we've built in-house, and now we realize the need that the industry has. So that's one big difference between how the other firms have been handling exchange notifications versus how we are handling it. And the second point is really something related to the fact that RDU as an utility lives and breathes data, very different from how banks look at a reference data horizontal in their system, right? All of them believe that data quality is inherent to that team, but the beauty is what you run, Stephen, right? You have a data quality team. It's a separate, carved out set of people who are like cops sitting on around and questioning. And literally, the data quality team has set up checks and balances for every single point of failure, right? Sometimes it's the same check at different points, and it does provide different results. So to me, those are the two big differences that I can see. But Aparajita, I would like to hear from you on how different you joined us recently, right? But how do you see this as a new product launch strategy, right? It's not something that the industry has seen before.
Yeah, so in my prior life, the products that we created, they weren't conceptually unique, right? So when we went into the market, we had competitors, right? And that's in itself a challenge. When you have the exchange notification service, in this case, it is truly unique. To my knowledge, there is no one else who centralizes and normalizes exchange notifications for reference data in the same way that we do, right? And strangely, what I've discovered is that competition is actually a good thing in some cases, because it validates the concept, it validates that the market exists. So when we have no competition, as is the case with exchange notifications here, we need time to educate the market. We need time for the market to catch up that the concept exists, right? That this is a real problem. And so when I speak to the majority of my clients to understand ENS, and when they realize that there is a P&L impact and quite possibly a compliance reporting impact for them as well, so they're going to potentially get fined, it's like the penny drops, right? It's like suddenly finding treasure that's hidden in plain sight. And once you've seen it, you've seen where it lives, you can't unsee it. So I would say that of the clients and prospects that I've spoken to so far, only a handful have been able to identify whom in their organization, as is, does any kind of exchange notification tracking, right? So forget a separate data quality team, which is probably what you were talking about, but just a single centralized unit who processes exchange notifications and applies those changes to their reference data universe. And like I said, once you know that the problem exists, once you know that the gap exists, and you know, more importantly, the impact of not applying those changes from a P&L perspective, you can't unsee that, you can't unlearn that, right? And 9 out of 10 clients and prospects, I would say, actually mistake exchange notifications for corporate actions. You know, they say, oh yeah, oh well, our corporate actions provider provides us that, and it's like, really, can you show it to me, right? Here are some examples of some exchange notifications. Go ahead, you know, ask your corporate actions provider if they provide these sorts of notifications. So actually, that's probably you know, since Stephen, you are in the front line, you know, you talk to clients all the time. Are you hearing the same thing?
Yeah, I think what we're hearing is there's a gap. And that gap is, how do I know that my corporate action provider is actually providing all the information that they should be? what this does is, while it's not solely around corporate actions, it's around all notifications from the exchange. Corporate action plays a big part, and this actually gives the client the opportunity to validate what they're seeing from the corporate action partners. So while we're not a corporate action feed, we're actually helping them to better monitor what they receive from their corporate action services. And it is something that, as Pallavi said, something that's done in the banks as it is right now, and just not centralized or organized in a way that makes it easy to do those kind of comparisons.
Yeah, I agree, Stephen. Meaning, it's a very practical service, right? If you see it that way, corporate actions, like it or not, I mean, has its own place, but an exchange notification service is that, right? Exchanges publish notifications all the time, and each of these notifications, or not each of them, or you first of all have to sift through the notifications. Not all of them have back to you, right? So first of all, there is the task of having to sift through hundreds of notifications and figure out which ones will actually impact your data. And then once you figure them out, they may not necessarily be corporate actions. They could be related to feed changes. They could be related to timing changes. Everything that has an impact on how you maintain and use data downstream, right? So I like to call it as a bigger umbrella of notifications that can impact you. So that way it's very practical. It's not just equities that you're monitoring changes on, right? We are monitoring changes on commodity derivatives, FX derivatives, interest rate derivatives. We are monitoring changes on new listings, strike range changes, exercise style changes, settlement type changes, right? It changes from cash to physical sometimes. These are not captured by a corporate action feed, right? We had this change on CMEG where the derivatives moved from being listed on Eris to CBOT, right? Again, something not a corporate action service will focus on. But these are things that every firm needs to react to in order to keep the trading cycle alive, right? So for that to happen, you need all of these, and they all have it. But they have it in, like how Stephen mentioned, in sections, and everybody just does their own solution, right? So the exchange notification service that we provide in many ways is one, real time. Secondly, is in a standard format, which really is the biggest USP, so to speak, right? I mean, how are you going to build the ability to read and interpret data from, like I said, emails and PDFs and just web notifications, right? So that way, I really think everybody does it, and there is that value for you to build in efficiencies on that. Why do it when there is a smarter way to handle exchange notifications?
I think that's really true. I mean, being able to efficiently get through your notices by using our service, you're able to sort, filter, so you don't have to look at every single notice that you get. You can really center in on what affects you and affects your process.
Awesome. So there you have it, folks. That's hot off the press. We are our own customers, right? And I think Pallavi and Stephen described that very well. And it's the level of intelligence that we've managed to use in-house, and we're now offering to our clients. And I'm intrigued and excited to see how our clients will use it, how our clients will use that same intelligence, but in completely different ways. So for any questions, please reach out to any one of us, anybody from SmartStream. We're here to help. Thank you.